are going to close on our AOB with a new feature where we're just going to have a general group discussion about a topic and our favourite particular film of a particular director. And let's start with one of the most prolific directors this week, and that is Steven Spielberg. So I think I could probably predict what you're going to pick, Andy Godfrey, for this film, but let me see if I'm correct. What is your favourite Spielberg film and why?
Not just in my opinion, my favourite Spielberg film, the greatest movie ever made, Raiders of the Lost Ark. A big surprise to everybody. Just to tell you that the first time I saw Raiders, it was a sad circumstances. My family and I were on holiday in Cornwall. My dad received word that his best friend and colleague had passed away, and the funeral was happening while we were on holiday in Devon. I was a teenager at the time. Mum and Dad left me and my brother on our own. My brother's girlfriend came down. Sorry, little me, went off on his own to the cinema. I'd heard about this film called Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was the first week it was out. In my naivety, I thought it was something to do with Noah's Ark. And I'd only ever seen pictures of Harrison Ford and Karen Allen tied to a big pole. So I didn't have a clue. I went and saw it. And you know the evening sequence where he's been chased by the boulders and he's been chased by the guys and the plane flies away into the distance. At that point, this is absolutely true, I got up to walk out thinking, wow, I've just seen a great movie. Because that whole opening sequence is so tight, it's so encompassed, it feels like you've seen a film from beginning to end with them flying off into the distance. I actually got up and walked out thinking that was brilliant. Hang on a minute, it's still going. And then it got better and better and better. And I think arguably the sword swinging guy getting shot is the funniest moment ever in the history of cinema, arguably. We all know the story behind that. There was sickness on the set. Why don't I just shoot the bastard? To me, it's got a bit of everything I like in a film. It's got romance, science fiction, action, adventure, great hero, special effects, great dialogue. I love it to this day. I've had the privilege of meeting Karen Allen, and I told her how much I loved it. I've spoken to John Rhys-Davies. I interviewed him a few years ago, and down the phone, I told him Raiders was my favourite film of all time. And down the phone, he just went, very dangerous. You go first. And having him on the other end of the phone saying that, the hair on the back of my neck stood up.
Marvellous.
It was incredible. So yeah,
a good story.
I mean, I love Spielberg. Close Encounters is also in my top 10 of all time, but Raiders is my favourite film of all time.
Yeah, good. Now, you see, I thought you might be going to say Jaws there, but I wasn't correct. But Raiders, yeah, I can get behind that one. Yeah. Let's move to the younger audience here. Emma, what's your favourite Spielberg film?
This became something of a five-way tie at one point because I was like, oh, it's absolutely this film. And I was like, I'm just going to look at his filmography just to make sure. I was like, oh, but there's that film. And I've forgotten about that film. And I did get down to two, and I'm still trying to decide. I'm going to make an impulse decision. Jurassic Park. Come on, we've got to get out of here.
The only thing that matters now are the people we love.
I love a creature feature anyway. Everything about this film brings me joy when I see it. It was so much fun. I remember seeing it when I was younger, and absolutely I love the practical effects side of it. So that always appeals to me in films. I think, there's just some iconic moments that I use those GIFs all the time. To friends, always things from the original Jurassic Park. I mean, the theme song, to everything. I don't think it's got a single bit wrong with it, apart from, obviously, it could have done with more Samuel L. Jackson.
Good choice, a classic. Okay, we've had Raiders, we've had Jurassic Park. Scott.
So, this is awkward. Emma's stolen my answer. I would also pick Jurassic Park.
You are of the age where that would have made a big impact on you at that age, yeah?
Well, the thing is, as we mentioned in a previous podcast when I was talking about my favourite trailer and I picked The Lost World Jurassic Park, I had mentioned that I'd actually seen that film before I'd seen the first Jurassic Park, and I'd only seen that years later on TV, as opposed to when it first came out. And yeah, as Emma said, the practical effects are incredible. I think The acting, it's such a great cast, iconic. They've obviously came back a few times because of how iconic they are. The music is phenomenal. But, I mean, the John Williams, Steven Spielberg partnership, I mean, I couldn't even count how many films they've been amazing together. I think, yeah, as a kid, dinosaurs, they're cool, right? And this one just had everything for me from that side of it. So, yeah, I'd have to pick Jurassic Park as well. It's in my top 5 of all time.
Yeah.
Can I just say you're making me feel so old? Because I saw
Sorry, Andy.
the week. I saw Jurassic Park the day it came out.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Yeah, those are all really great choices. I'm afraid you're all wrong, though. That's your right to be wrong. I think the best Spielberg film is one that you just mentioned, Andy, and that's Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I recently had a close encounter with something very unusual. Who are you people?
From 1977, I saw this when it came out when I was 16 years old. Can you imagine such a thing? And I watched the skies. Every night I was out in the garden watching the skies for alien life. It had such a massive effect on me, that film. I must have gone to the cinema to see it a dozen times, probably, in the first few weeks of it opening. I thought the structure of it was so beautiful. John Williams' music, the final scenes of the film where the spaceship takes off, I think that piece of music is a desert island piece of music for me, that I would take that to a desert island. Richard Dreyfuss, Melinda Dillon, Terry Garr, Carrie Guthrie as a little kid. I think it delivered superb performances. Francois Truffaut, the French director, as the guy who deserves to be there more than Mozambique, as the T-shirt said. I think it's just a fantastic film. Spielberg unfortunately came back and created the special edition, which was a terrible thing to do. Not because he did that totally unnecessary scene of Neri going inside the spaceship, but also because he cut out certain scenes. There's an absolutely pivotal scene at the beginning of the original cut where Neri is in a power plant where he worked as the electrical linesman, being told, you need to get out and fix these electrical lines because we've got blackouts everywhere. And it's an absolute key part of the plot, because later in the film he gets fired and you don't know why he's being fired. Why is he being fired? Just because he was driving in his truck and had this close encounter. The whole film kind of got chopped up and chewed up and spat out with new bits filmed, with the kids looking far older than they were in the original cut, etc., etc. Terrible idea. So I go back to the original theatrical cut. Yeah.
I was a couple of years ago. I was at a Mark Commode show in London, and Mark was interviewing Richard Dreyfuss. And afterwards, Mark introduced me to Richard Dreyfuss, and I got to chat to him for about 20 minutes. And I asked him about the special edition of Close Encounters, particularly where you go into the mothership. He said to me, "I begged Spielberg not to do that." He said, "I told him that this was the biggest mistake of his career, that he would regret it, that it was wrong." He said, "I begged Spielberg not to make me do it." But he was under a contract. And Richard Dreyfuss said to me, "I didn't want to do it. Worst thing Spielberg ever did was to change the ending of Close Encounters." So just so you know, Richard Dreyfuss filming that scene was very unhappy as well.
Yeah. So it was the Spielberg equivalent of painting a moustache on the Mona Lisa, I think. But for me, the original theatrical cut, Close Encounters, is a film very close to my heart. It's probably my number one film of all time, just because of that association I have. Right, so for Spielberg classics, we like you said, Emma, you could pick a whole load of different films.
Isn't it interesting that we've all gone for the more fantasy-orientated ones rather than the Schindler's List and the Saving Private Ryan and Amistad? Really, because you can divide Spielberg into two, can't you? The fantasy and the sort of more historical
Colour
epics.
Purple.
Lincoln.
Yeah,
Colour Purple.
Yeah.
And we've gone for the more fantasy-orientated ones because he's just so good at it.
Yeah, indeed. Hook. Why did you?
I will have no bad words about Hook, Bob.
Oh, I love that. That was on my short list of
Really?
6.
Really, you surprised me with that. You really do, yeah.
West Side Story.
I will admit something though, that I haven't seen Close Encounters.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Get it on your list.
I will fix that. I promise.
Yeah,
See the original version. Just see the original version, the first cut,
not the
special edition or
Yeah,
the director's cut or anything. Now, tonight, right now. Brilliant.